Well, Zach, thank you for your time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, Zach, today we see AI in many things, mostly everywhere, from language models to robotics. What do you see as the most promising applications of AI in the near future?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Do you want me to hold it? Okay. I think it depends on who you ask. I'm personally most excited about AI's ability to improve outcomes in three sectors: healthcare, education, and financial services. I think so much of what the developing world and first world struggle with once we meet our basic needs is around those three sectors. Most people in the United States are actually still unbanked. I'm sure that's less true in Brazil because the digital banks have become so popular. Mm-hmm. But financial literacy is still exceptionally low in these countries. And figuring out ways to massively scale the quality and accessibility of financial products, like as simple as insurance products that make it, okay if a relative dies, if a loved one dies, you're not bankrupted if you want to do a simple funeral, to more complex like wealth management. I think we're just going to see a massive influx of affordable, accessible, high-value financial goods and services that improve the financial literacy of most of the developed world. On the healthcare and education side, again, I don't know what it's like in Brazil, but healthcare and education in the United States is pretty laughable, especially given our resources. There is very little trust in the system at this point, and somehow all the constituents are unhappy. The doctors are unhappy, the patients are unhappy, the hospitals are unhappy, the students are unhappy, the teachers are unhappy, the parents are unhappy. So how then we observe that these systems are so broken and yet the stakes are so high, right? What do you want most in this world? You want for your loved ones to be taken care of and educated. And when you consider also that it accounts for about 50% of the global budget, and certainly the US spends about 56% of its annual budget on healthcare and education, you're talking about like the two biggest opportunities for massive disruption. I think that we are going to see a huge privatization of education as people start building AI-powered schools. Mm-hmm. Not software to sell to schools, but new schools that incorporate alternative forms of education like Montessori and Waldorf, and really exceptional personalized tutoring. And then I think we're not long away from a world where everyone has access to an AI-powered primary care physician. And it doesn't solve specialist care yet, but it certainly solves preventative care and triaging. Do you need a specialist right now, yes or no? So those are my favorite applications. Now, lots of people are much more excited about near-term things like customer support, personalization, content personalization. Certainly, look, we're at VTEX. It's worth pointing out that e-commerce was never going to be the same again, right? Like the way that we shop, the way that we buy, the way that we learn about products will change massively over the next few years. And I think that's great. I just don't think it has the same implications as fixing these other institutions does.
All right. Well, you mentioned the schools, and so I'm a professor to a university, and following that, do you think artificial intelligence could somehow threaten jobs, or on the other hand, could it be make existing professionals more productive?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes to both. Look, both industrial revolutions, both major industrial revolutions, saw a massive increase in jobs per capita on the other side. And the jobs were better by safety and pay standards. The problem wasn't that if you were a mill worker at the end of an industrial revolution, the problem, if I came to you and said, hey, you can't work in your mill anymore, it's not necessary, but you can work in this factory, you might say to me, I don't actually want to do that job. I'm a mill worker. And in the United States, Smith, the most common last name, is actually born from an occupation. We attach our identities to our work. I think that the big crisis that we're facing is not a job displacement one, it's an identity displacement one. I think that we are fast approaching a world where the cost of goods and services come down so far that it doesn't actually matter if wages adjust. I don't think we need to work more hours in order for people to be healthier and happier. I think we need to bring the cost of water, the cost of foodstuffs, the cost of housing, the cost of energy way down, and we're doing that. The bigger issue is, if I say to you, you can't be a journalist anymore, don't worry, there's food on the table. There's plenty of food, but you don't get to be a journalist. You might say, no, I want to be a journalist. We inextricably connect our work identity to our personal identity, our sense of self.
Excellent point.
This is my concern. This is my single greatest fear, which is that we won't actually achieve an AGI-enabled utopia because people will fight so hard this idea that their jobs will change, and everyone's jobs will change regularly. And so I'm just so much less worried about the economic impacts of this than I am about the social ones.
You mentioned everyone's job will change. That's true. But are people prepared for that? I mean, especially in a country like Brazil with general poor quality of education?
I don't think anyone's prepared for it. I'd like to think I'm prepared for it because I've thought about it a lot. And people always, people will come up to me and say, Zach, what are you going to do then? Like it's a gotcha, like they're tricking me. And I say, I'll happily play volleyball and tennis in Santa Barbara. I've gotten to a place where I don't feel like my work defines me anymore at all. But I also appreciate that not many people have that luxury or are there. And I think it's going to be very complicated for people to accept that there might be work available for them to make a living, but that work isn't the work that they want to do. And that's going to be very hard.
I see. Well, about ethical implications of AI, it's a topic of hot debate.
Yeah.
How those companies, for example, like OpenAI, how those companies like that approach ensuring responsible development and deployment of AI technology?
Every manufacturer of large language models today has a strict, and this OpenAI to Google to Anthropic to Mistral has a very strict alignment pursuit, which governs almost all of the things that they do. And I think that no one in the industry gets enough credit for actually prioritizing alignment and responsible AI to the extent that they do. These alignment teams are so big and so well provisioned relative to the organization to protect, to safeguard against irresponsible development. That being said, it is an ongoing issue. It's an ongoing pursuit. You don't get to declare alignment solved. Mm-hmm. And we have to continue to hold the researchers accountable to alignment standards. And I think this is where, more than anything, policy makers should be focusing their attention. Alignment and explainability. And the responsible development of AI should be both aligned to human interest. By the way, should I pause to explain alignment?
No, it's okay.
Okay. The effective development of AI should basically be held to two exceptionally high standards. Alignment standards, how well does this machine concern itself with human interest? Mm-hmm. And explainability standards. How well does this machine explain why it is doing a certain thing? If we can do those two things, then everything else becomes totally acceptable. Much less important. Okay.
And following that, the concept of AI for good is gaining traction in recent years. How can AI work for a positive social impact?
Well, it's hard for me to imagine ways in which AGI won't have a massive positive impact. I think we have to accept that in the very near term, maybe the next 50 or 100 years, it will feel very weird, and it may be bad on a societal basis. But I studied history at Berkeley, and I always thought that I never knew in what context I would use it. I talk about history and historical context more than ever today. It is better to be born today than it has ever been to be born. That is just That is objectively true. And tomorrow it will probably be best to be born, and the day after, and the day after. And we are going to continue to observe this trend. And so regardless of how people feel about the world today, or think the future might go, we can all observe that we would rather be alive today or born today than any other time in human history. If you believe that that trend will continue, and I do, then one of the things that you have to also consider is, will AI actually hockey stick? Will it make that trend super linear? Are we about to actually, will it be much better to be born in 20 years than it is today? And I think the answer is yes. I think inevitably I think we will cure cancer. I think we will cure neurodegenerative diseases. I think we will solve quantum computing and nanotechnology. It seems almost, I would bet my life that it happens in my lifetime. I don't know how that works. That's a recursive bet, but it is almost inevitable at this point. Certainly within the next 200 years, but most likely within the next 20. And so we are going to unlock all these things that have caused so much pain and suffering for so long. And then I think we're going to be left with the big question, which is, if we solve all the scarcity in the world, what then is our purpose? And I think I think this is going to be very hard. I think our purpose is to spend time with friends and family in community. I observe that this is what makes people happiest. You would trade everything for your friends and family, so would I. Sure. This is just, everyone listening, everyone in the world would. This is what makes us happiest. I think we should do this more.
Okay. And looking ahead, what do you envision as the next big breakthroughs or milestones in the field of artificial intelligence?
So in the short term, we're going to see massive improvements in what we call autonomous agents, or AI agents. So the ability for AI to do things on your behalf, on your devices, is about to arrive. It's already here, we haven't seen it commercially applied. So whereas right now ChatGPT is a bot and sort of can message with you, in the future you might say to it, hey, I want you to send this email on my behalf. I want you to book this trip on my behalf. And it will do things on your device for you. Then we're going to see this huge new wave of multimodality. So machines are going to become very good at basically all the intellectual tasks of humans: smell, touch, taste, sight, sound, etc. These will be multimodal experiences.
Okay. And tricky question now. Do you think artificial intelligence should be regulated by laws like European AI Act, or maybe something more along the line of what US is working on, which is more dependent on regulatory agencies, or it should not be regulated at all?
No, it should definitely be regulated. We need regulation. I think we need international standards around alignment and explainability. And I think anything that is not talking about alignment and explainability is introducing opportunity for corruption and special interests. There's so much noise in the policy world around different things that you could regulate in AI, but if you're not regulating whether or not the model is aligned to human interest and whether or not the model can explain itself effectively, I don't think you're regulating interesting things today.
Okay. But do you think that the European model is better than US model, or whatever?
I don't know which model. It's too early to determine which. I would rather that there be an international model instead of regional model. I think it'll get really complicated really quickly. I mean, we've already seen the cost of GDPR, the laws that the EU passes on the internet versus the laws that America passes on the internet, create all sorts of inefficiencies for companies and individuals that I don't think actually serve anyone, quite honestly. And I think if you could do GDPR over, you wouldn't do it again, if you're Europe.
Okay, and last question, finally, how far are we from general artificial intelligence?
2030 is my guess. I think AGI arrives 2030.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Zack.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.